Thank you, Carmen. Especially grateful to have Dorothy's voice so powerful heard here. Thank you very much. I guess my name is Mark Colville. I want to begin by reflecting back the sort of the congratulations and the gratitude that's been expressed to us and through this award back to Pax Christi, New York Metro. I go back far enough to the mid-1980s when I received a bit of a mentoring in nonviolence from you, from Pax Christi Metro, particularly at the Good Friday peace walks that have been mentioned when I was in college. It was a very mentoring part of my life, so thank you for that. And thank you for calling us here today. I'm very grateful. Anyway, I just wanted to spend a couple minutes talking more specifically about what we actually did there at Kings Bay as a way of trying to name some of the maybe the spiritual and theological underpinnings of what we chose to do at Kings Bay. So just take a couple minutes to do that. So yeah, as has been expressed, you know, the 7 U.S. citizens, Catholics, entered St. Mary's, Georgia, on the Kings Bay Naval Base there. Interesting that the town is named for our Mother Mary. I should say that well, first of all, Kings Bay is home port to several of the most destructive weapon ever known to human civilization, the Trident submarine. These weapons are omnicidal. They are absolutely omnicidal. Our purpose in going there then was a sacramental and liturgical one. Okay, we were attempting to be obedient to the baptismal commitment to prophetic action. We're fond of talking about baptism as a rite of membership. What we don't talk about enough maybe in the church is that baptism is also a rite of exorcism, and it's a commission to prophecy. So all of us baptized Catholics are called to prophetic action. And so we're responding to that call very simply and in community, which is the best and simplest way to do that. 5 months previous to, actually we entered the base on a significant date, which I'll mention towards the end. April 5th, 2018 was the 50th anniversary of the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. 5 months previous to our entering the base, as had been mentioned, Pope Francis had definitively named the building and possession of nuclear weapons to be an objective moral evil. This was a deep affirmation for us, as we had been preparing upwards of 2 years to enter that base. And so we found this to be a deeply affirming statement from the Pope, unequivocal on the moral evil of nuclear weapons. And we kind of accepted it in many ways as maybe a marching order, to use a military term. Our intent was to simply to enact a prophecy, as Carmen read, this prophecy of Isaiah in chapter 2, verse 4. So more specifically then, our purpose in going to the base was the smashing of idols. One of the things we deliberated on was that from a biblical perspective, idols are not to be disagreed with, argued against, voted against, or negotiated with. Idols are to be smashed, according to the Bible. And so, so we took that as our authorization to trespass onto the base, and to try to do this public liturgy, this public rite of exorcism. That being a sacramental as well, a sacramental act. Sacramental being meaning in the sense that we were trying to call forth into history, into reality, the promises of Christ, the promises of the gospel. And so, because this was in many ways, a rite of exorcism, it was incumbent upon us to get as close to, as Father Kelly was fond of reminding us, that we need to get as close to the site of the sin as possible in order to enact this liturgy. So we tried to do that, and we ended up, we split up into 3 groups. There were 3 specific locations at the base that we wanted to address. One was there's an administration building, which I believe Claire and, we can say this now since we're not on trial. I believe Claire and Martha went over to the administration building carrying, as we all did, we all carried small containers of our own blood. And we each carried one of Isaiah's hammers. And several of those hammers actually were made from automatic weapons that were melted down and turned into farming tools. Another Plowshares action. Look up Shane Claiborne for more information on that. He's doing that in many places in local communities, actively hammering swords into plowshares in local communities. So we took a few of those hammers as well. Personally, I also carried with me a set of rosary beads, which enabled my body to move through the paralysis that the fear was causing me. So, and I know others also carried in similar things, maybe personal items. Again, this is in order to get to the site of the sin. In many ways, we had to carry each other, and that's how we do. These actions take place. In fact, the precursor to these actions is the forming of community, and in fact, that becomes really the most important part of it going forward. That the community, we can't go forward like this alone. It must be done in community. Okay, so Claire and Martha went to the administration building. They also brought an indictment, which a legal document pointing out the crimes that are being committed on the base. And that was a legal document, and we were actually wanting the local DA's office to respond to it. So they posted that on the administration building and hammered, I believe, on the ground and spray painted messages related to Isaiah chapter 2, verse 4. Patrick O'Neill and I were at the what I can only describe as a shrine to nuclear weapons in the central square. The base is like a town. The central square, there were all these replicas of the nuclear missiles that have been developed over the decades, and it was clearly a place where these people were invited to come and honor and even worship these weapons. I mean, so this was actually idolatry, on full display. Is the best way I can describe it. And Patrick and I addressed that with the hammers, and it was quite a robust action there. And then the remainder of the folks, Carmen and Father Steve and Elizabeth, went over to the weapons bunkers, which is a specific area within the base, a deadly force zone. There was a very unnerving kind of announcement that was coming over the loudspeaker every 15 minutes or so, saying that you're in a deadly force zone and lethal force is authorized. Okay, so we had to present as much of a nonviolent sort of demeanor as possible, and we went over a lot of ways in which to do that. Anyway, so we went and addressed these 3 places, and I should say that with the weapons bunkers, there were a couple of fences to cut through, including an electrified one. And when they were getting to that, the Marines showed up and accosted them, and they immediately dropped to their knees in prayer and assured the soldiers that they would not oppose them, that we come in peace, and we will not oppose you. Back at the weapons shrine there, Patrick and I had finished our liturgy, and so had Claire and Martha, and so they were just a short distance away. They came over and joined us, and we awaited arrest. It took upwards of 40 or 45 minutes for the police to show up. And we sat and we prayed over the daily readings in the lectionary, awaiting arrest. And interestingly, there were a lot of very poignant moments there, but one of them was when we engaged the commanding officer who was arresting us. We engaged him in conversation. He was kind of this old Southern guy, and he walked up and said, "Well, you know, you guys you're in a bit of trouble here." But then we kind of, I must say, you know, I have been arrested a few times since Pax Christi Metro back in the 1980s, and this was probably the most gentle arrest, as it turned out, that I ever experienced, and I believe it was really due to this man, this person who shared with us, this commanding officer, had the disarmed demeanor to share with us the tragedy of having lost a child, you know, recently. And we talked about that. Patrick was really engaging him in conversation about that. So anyway, it was in the midst of this terrifying event, you know, that there was a real humanity going on here, and not just on our side. Anyway, yeah, just to move on, I think we also brought a couple of banners, you know, one with a quote from Martin Luther King Jr. that he had spoken at a high school in Michigan just 2 weeks previous to his murder, which was, "The ultimate logic of racism is genocide." And we had actually adapted that statement to a second banner, which said, "The ultimate logic of Trident is omnicide." Trying to make a specific connection between about the inseparability of war and racism. Yeah. So this is what we did. We performed this liturgy. As we said, we were subsequently arrested and taken into custody. We were charged with 3 felonies and a misdemeanor. The court process was very long, very fascinating, and too long to discuss here. But suffice it to say that the federal government has placed nuclear weapons in a legal vacuum, okay? Which is to say, we were not permitted, you know, typically in all criminal cases, intent is a very important element, you know, to the findings, to a jury finding you guilty or not guilty. Essentially, through the court process, our intent was judged to be irrelevant by the judge. And in fact, our intent was not allowed to, much of our intent was not allowed to be heard by the jury. So nuclear weapons are in a legal vacuum. Similar, I mean, since we were in Georgia, you could say similar to the situation of slavery a couple hundred years ago. I mean, there was a time in this country when the question of the legality of slavery was not allowed to be raised in federal courts, okay, in this country, or any court in this country, okay? That's the situation we're in from a legal perspective right now, okay? And so in many ways, the court process is a beating of our heads against a wall, you know, an immovable wall. At the same time, it's an unmasking of this, okay? The court process, well, let me close with this. Kings Bay was the 3rd Plowshares action that I've undertaken since Ash Wednesday in 1997. And when I'm asked to define what a Plowshares action is, I say I've come to understand it this way. A Plowshares action is an unmasking of the demon of militarism that every day lays waste to my neighborhood. The Plowshares action is an unmasking of the demon of militarism that every day lays waste to my neighborhood. So for the people of St. Mary's, Georgia, and anywhere else who might have been paying attention, or anybody who's paying attention now, I believe the Kings Bay Plowshares event unmasked the following. 1, that nuclearism is a religion, okay? It's a compulsory religion that we're all obliged to accept as citizens of this country. Why do I say that? Because nuclear weapons remove God as our ultimate security and replace them with essentially the threat to murder all of our children, not just our enemies' children, but our own children. That this standing threat to murder all of our children, that this is the security that the religion of nuclearism offers us, and it's essential to understand this point about idolatry. Okay, the U.S. is an idolatrous nation because nuclearism is our central religion. Okay, and you could say that as the great Jesuit priest Father McSorley said several decades ago, that this is the taproot of all of the violence. He would say that nuclear weapons underwrite all of the the violence of the systems and structures that Kevin was speaking about before. It's all underwritten by these weapons. This perpetual holding a gun to the head of all humanity. It eviscerates the rule of law. Okay, and the quality of when a nation goes to worship idols, again from a biblical perspective, that's when a nation becomes an empire. Okay, when and the essential quality of empire and the religion of empire, the central quality of that is human sacrifice. Okay, this is what we're dealing with nuclear weapons. Okay, this is a compulsory religion that demands human sacrifice. We saw that in many ways. I was among a few of us who, after arrest, refused to post bail, and I wanted to be in that county jail in Brunswick, where in the area from where the jury itself was being chosen for our trial. I wanted to be there. I wanted to, because I knew that human sacrifice is part and parcel to what is going on at Kings Bay. And in fact, I was on a cell block awaiting trial for about 15 months through all the delays and all. Typically I would be in a cell block of 35 people. I would be one of maybe 3 or 4, white people on the cell block. It was very clear, and I could get into the terrible way in which the people. This is a holding facility, and most of the people aren't even. They haven't even been adjudicated. Charges haven't been adjudicated yet, and they're held for months and sometimes years on end in a place that's only equipped to hold people for a couple of weeks. It was a very difficult, but a very close experience of this notion of human sacrifice that is directly related to worshiping other gods. Secondly, thirdly, nuclear weapons are used every day. Okay, this is what we were trying to unmask. Okay, they've already been launched in our neighborhoods. Okay, not just from the theft of resources, but the modeling of behavior. The kind of jungle-based behavior, right? Where again the rule of law means nothing. It's simply raw power involved here. And these weapons are used every day. They underwrite all the other forms of violence. And then, most importantly, the gospel of Jesus Christ gives human beings power over idols and the demons they unleash on our society. The essential call, as I said, the essential call of baptism is a prophetic one. Prophecy is not about predicting futures. Prophecy is about naming the present reality. All of us, the gospel empowers all of us to do that in our own communities. And so this was simply another form of that. Again, chosen in community, and again, we carried each other to this place. And we wanted to make this statement. We wanted to unmask this demon of militarism that every day makes war on our neighborhoods. So thanks. I hope I didn't go on too long. And who's next?
Thank you.